Hello everyone and welcome to BHD Studios. Today we'll be looking at the brand new X-T5 and seeing if it's worth upgrading from the previous X-T4 or maybe the X-T3, or maybe if you have the X-H1, is it worth it to upgrade? I'll give you 4 reasons why you would want to upgrade and 4 reasons why maybe you don't want to upgrade. And specifically, we're going to be talking about the X-T4 because this is actually a question I'm asking myself. I have the X-T4 as my main work camera. Should I upgrade to the X-T5? So 4 pros, 4 cons of why you would want to upgrade. Now before we begin, I'd like to thank KEH for sponsoring this video. This month, a special month with KEH, they have a couple of great deals. They have a 10% trade-in bonus. And so if you are thinking of upgrading to an X-T5 or maybe even up to an X-T4, because I have a feeling there'll be a few of these coming in, you can get a 10% trade-in bonus. But as well, KEH is a dealer for Fujifilm, so you can buy Fujifilm gear directly from them. And so they do have a trade-up program. So if you go to the website, we'll talk about it a little bit in detail a little bit later on, but you get up to $200 off a trade-up on a brand new body or up to $100 trade-up on brand new lenses. KEH is the original reseller of professional, collectible, and everyday gear for camera lovers everywhere since 1979. They purchase directly from photographers like us. We are camera nerds and so are they. They renew and resell at fair prices and truly become part of an endless cycle of creativity, community, and opportunity. So whenever they reach out and ask me if I wanted to work with them on a sponsored video, I always say yes because they really give back to the camera nerd community. And so thank you so much, KEH. So let's start the video now. Alright, so the number one reason why you would want to trade up to an X-T5 or get an X-T5 is the articulating screen, the 3-way tilt. Now I kind of laid this out this way so that you can see the major difference. The X-T4 comes out sideways like this, and so if you are a photographer, a street photographer especially, and you like using the straps over here, the strap gets in the way with the LCD, and if you put it back this way here, now it doesn't articulate. Now it is great that this does go back in like this and you can protect it, but for a lot of us street photographers, you know, not only do we use the EVF, but also sometimes we like to shoot kind of down low like this, right? And when we shoot down low, it's just a lot easier to have this 3-way tilt. And that 3rd way, of course, is this way. So if you are shooting vertically and down low, see that? You get that angle there. So there are a lot of us that prefer this 3-way tilt. I personally prefer this 3-way tilt. And so for those of us that are happy that it's back, well then here you go with the X-T5. And as well, it's the return back to the traditional dial setup. Now when the X-H2S and the X-H2 came out, a lot of people thought that this style of camera is dead, and a lot of us knew that it wasn't dead. Now if you are used to the X-T4, you will definitely see that it is almost identical in terms of the button layout. There's a little bit of a difference. The button's a little bit bigger. It's really hard to tell, but these back buttons here are actually a little bit bigger on the X-T5 versus the X-T4. But pretty much, you know, you got the video switching feature over here. You have your drive modes down here as a sub dial. You have your locking top ISO dial and your shutter speed. The exposure compensation dial is actually bigger now. You got the traditional focus selector dial, which is great. And yeah, overall, I just really like the traditional layout of this. So this, to me, in spirit, is a return back to the X-T3, but it basically has IBIS, right? When the X-T4 came out, we were happy, and this was a mid-cycle upgrade, but they gave us this articulating screen, and so a lot of us loved everything about the X-T4 except for this screen. If you are a traditional shooter like this, then this is the way to go. The number 2 is, of course, this is the 5th generation product, so you have a new sensor and a new processor in here. So you do have the 40 megapixel, or you can get up to 160 megapixels with the pixel shift program. So it shoots up to 20 photos, and then in software on your computer, it would be great if they did it in camera, but I understand it takes up a lot of processing power. And so on your computer, you can stitch it together up to 160 megapixel image. So that's insane being able to do that on a APS-C censored camera. And even even 40 megapixels on APS-C is pretty insane, and the image quality is fantastic. I tested it in New York with the XH2. I did low light photography up to ISO 1600, I say is really good, and ISO 3200, you have to work with it in Lightroom or Photoshop and be able to control the noise and see kind of what you're willing to live with. But overall, 40 megapixels, insane resolution with this, especially coming from an APS-C camera. And as well as the faster 5th generation processor in here, it is twice the power of the previous X processor 4, and this already was a pretty darn good processor. It went into the GFX 100, and so it shows you how much power is still in the older X processor 4, but the X processor 5 is twice the power, and yet it's more power efficient. And because of that, the X-T4 I think had a CP rating of 600 photos, I think. Same battery in here, so remember, smaller and lighter than the X-T4, has better IBIS, and yet still uses the new battery. And because of the processor, you're actually getting up to 740 frames in economy mode with this. So 600, 740. So that's amazing because of that processor. And on top of that, you're getting improved autofocus with subject detect. So it knows birds, from trains to planes to bicycles to people, and having that, and I can definitely tell autofocus is way more sticky on this. Even when you're not using subject detect, even eye detect is more sticky. It really seems to follow the subject. And just even in regular autofocus, it is improved over the X-T4. So if autofocus is really important to you, then this upgrade makes a lot of sense. And finally, this has the HEIF, the high efficiency image files in here. If you have a recent Apple iPhone, you know that is the new format they use. The files are smaller than JPEG, but JPEGs are 8-bit and HEIF files are 10-bit. So that's a difference of 16 million colors and 1 billion colors. And so if you want a ready-to-view image like a JPEG, but you want the file smaller and you want better color depth, then you would go HEIF. And when you shoot RAW in camera, you can convert to a TIFF or convert to an HEIF. And as well, you can do batch conversions. So you can do batch conversions of your files from one file type to another, all in camera. So that's another reason why I like the new processor and sensor combination. And as I mentioned, number 3 is smaller, lighter, and still uses that bigger battery. So if you have the X-T3, you are using the MPW 126 battery in there, and that just it kind of outgrew the camera. Maybe on an X100 or an XE4, that smaller battery makes sense. But as you get into a camera like this, 40 megapixels, you have a lot of power in here, 6.2K video, and because of that, you want that new battery. So having this smaller form factor, it's more of a joy. I mean, it's not. If you have it side by side, you could tell the difference. You know, when you have a lens like this, here's a new 30mm f2.8. I don't mind this as an all-day carry camera. It's nice and light, and it actually has a deeper grip. It's hard to tell on the camera here, but it's a deeper grip. A lot of the big complaint about the X-T4 is that the grip is not deep enough, and also your finger kind of has to wrap around like this. That still happens with the X-T5. You do have to kind of wrap your finger in here, so they do offer a optional hand grip, so you don't have to do that. But the grip is deeper in here, so if you like the deeper grip and you like the ergonomics like this, again, lighter and smaller, this camera makes a lot of sense. And my final reason to upgrade to the X-T5 is the improved video features. Now there is a con with video, but in this part here, it is a positive in that you can do 6.2K 30p, 422 10-bit internal, or you can even do 4K high quality or HQ, which actually down renders a larger 6.2 and it down renders to 4K. And so I've done some quick tests, and definitely you could tell the images are sharper in here. So I would say there is a bit of a caveat, and we'll talk about it in the cons. There are some reasons why you would prefer the X-T4 over the X-T5 for video, but 6.2K and 4K HQ is great. And so those are the 4 top reasons why you would upgrade to the X-T5 from the X-T4. Alright, so let's move on to the 4 reasons why you wouldn't upgrade from the X-T4 to the X-T5. And number 1 is, if you look at the bottom here, you'll notice something. There isn't this right here, right? no connector for a battery grip. And so if you have the X-T4 and you love not only having the extra battery power, but having that vertical control grip where you can control your shutter and you can have your dials this way vertically, so let's say wildlife, sports, that kind of stuff, you can no longer do it on the X-T5. And so that could be a deal breaker for some. So I didn't get a grip for the X-T4 for myself, so personally it doesn't affect me, but for some of you it might. So no vertical battery grip on the X-T5. Number two, as I mentioned, this is actually less video centric than the X-T4. The X-T4, when it was launched, they did sort of market it as a video hybrid camera, and especially with this articulating screen, it makes a lot of sense that they would put a lot of video features in here, but it is less video centric. One of it is that there is a 1.23 times crop using the X-T5 in 6.2K as well as a 4K HQ. As well, the X-T4 had up to a 400 megabits per second video quality. This one here, I think it maxes out at 320. I'll put it down here, but some of the video features on here are a little bit downgraded from the X-T4, and I think the reason is because of this 40 megapixel sensor. So there's so many pixels on the sensor. That's kind of why Fujifilm had to crop it. Even with a more powerful processor, it still had to crop in because there's just too many pixels on this camera. So you are getting 6.2K, but there is a crop. And so if you're using a lens, like for me, often I vlog with the 10 to 24, or let's say you have a specific lens, like a 13mm f1.4 from Viltrox, which is the great vlogging lens. Well, now you will get a 1.23 times crop. And so if you have specific video needs, let's say you're jumping around from one camera to another and you're using the same lens, because of that crop, you're actually going to be changing your field of view. So think hard about getting this for video. If you have the X-T4, you know basically what and how you use it. Consider buying the XH2S or the XH2, because even with the XH2, it does have the optional CF Express Type B card. This goes back to the dual SD card slot, which is something that most of us stills photographers prefer, but there is a reason why you'd want to go with the XH2 with the CF Express B type, because of some of those larger video demands this camera can no longer handle. It also has a smaller buffer in here, so that probably is another reason why some of the video features has been downgraded on the X-T5, even compared to the X-T4. Another thing is, although the LCD is upgraded, 1.84 million dot LCD on here, but the EVF is actually a downgrade from the XH2. So the X-T4 has the same 3.69 million dot EVF in here, but this is a 0.75 times magnification. This is a 0.8 times. So you are getting a larger view in the EVF, but the actual, the dots on here are exactly the same, the resolution, where the XH2 and the XH2S has 5.69, I forgot the exact number, but it's the same that's in the Leica SL2. So when you look through the XH2 and the XH2S, wow, the EVF view is beautiful. This did not give you that beautiful EVF. It's giving you the same resolution that's on the previous generation X series, the 3.69. It's a decent EVF, but again, it is a downgrade from the one that's in the XH2 and the XH2S. Number 4 is that 40 megapixel sensor. And so there are some of you that don't want 40 megapixels. You are going to get a worse rolling shutter. You're getting, in terms of image noise, you're getting a bit of a downgrade on the high end. The base ISO on here for stills is 125, which is great. But your top end ISO, I would basically, I think, up to 1600 ISO, I'm happy. 3200, I recommend processing in Lightroom or Photoshop and be able to control how much noise you're willing to live with. But with 40 megapixels, I say it's still worth it, but for some of you that don't need the 40 megapixels and now at ISO 3200, it's not as usable, so that is kind of a downgrade for some. The final con of the X-T5, or reason to not upgrade, is the X-T4, when it came out, this was, according to Fujifilm, their flagship camera. So they put all the bells and whistles in this camera, the top of the line, everything. Now this thing here has very similar build quality, except just smaller and lighter. But again, as mentioned, because this is no longer the flagship, they downgraded the EVF from the XH2 and the XH2S. They don't give you the higher end CF Express card, which for a lot of people, they're fine with it. You don't have a headphone jack in here, which you never did on the X-T4 anyways, but you do have it on the XH2 and the XH2S, and so that's kind of a flagship feature. XH2, XH2S has a full-size HDMI. This only gives you, the doors are nicer. That's another thing about build quality. The doors are nicer than the XT4. XT4 had the flippy floppy doors that even the X Pro 3, which I'm actually using to shoot this video, has the floppy doors. They're back to the solid doors, which is nice, but micro HDMI, not the full-size HDMI that you are getting on the flagship camera. So there are some downgrades to this, and I think for a lot of people, specifically not having the battery grip. So would you guys have paid the same price for the X-T5, meaning instead of it being $16.99, if this was $19.99, so it would match the price of the XH2, but they would give you the upgraded EVF. And maybe for some of you, you want that fully articulating screen. And maybe for some of you, you do want the option of a CF Express Type B card, up to 1 terabyte memory cards, and in the future, probably even higher. So if you have high needs of shooting multiple images and want larger, faster cards, would you want that? So would you want a flagship XT series? Because I think for the longest time, we're used to the XT being sort of like the flagship camera. It's no longer a flagship camera. And because of that, a lot of things have been removed. You save $300 from the XH2, plus you get the traditional XT layout, which a lot of us like, the dials and the buttons and stuff like that. But this is no longer a flagship. And for some people, that actually might be a deal breaker. They want the best EVF, they want the best video features, they want the best stills features, and this does not have the best anymore. The XH2 will outperform this, including the ability to have a battery grip. And so for me, I think a flagship X-T5 that competed with the XH2, I would have been cool with it. I do prefer this LCD screen, and I think they made the right decision. If this is meant for stills photographers, it makes sense to go with this screen. But if for everything else, for me, I would have paid extra to have, especially the upgraded EVF on the X-T5. And so I've had a chance to shoot with this camera for the past 3 weeks. I enjoyed it. Check out my articles on Fujilove. I've tested all the new 5th generation sensor processor. I've got tons of photos on Fujilove, as well as on my Instagram account, as well as on YouTube. The question is, will I buy this? So will I replace my X-T4 with the X-T5? Or will I go XH2? And so in the next couple of weeks, I will do another video and tell you which way I went. I'm gonna have to make a decision. Am I gonna buy the X-T5 or am I gonna get the XH2? What do you guys think? All right, just trying to make space here for the XH1. And so thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much KEH for sponsoring this video. Now, as I mentioned, this is a special month at KEH. They do have a 10% trade-in bonus for anyone who is trading in to buy, but as well, they do have a trade-up program if you wanted to buy something brand new from Fujifilm. So it can be something like the X-T5 or the brand new 30mm f2.8 macro lens. So any of these new lenses or new bodies, if you want to trade up, even up to a GFX, they do have a trade up program. So up to $200 for a body. So on a GFX 50S Mark II, you can actually save right now on sale. It's $800 off. And on top of that, through KEH, if you're trading in something, you can get up to a 10% trade-in value, and you can trade up. You get an additional $200 trade up on the GFX 50S Mark II, and on specific bodies, I'll post some pictures. You got to go to the website to see, but up to $200. But for most Fujifilm bodies, around $100 to $150 a trade up to a brand new Fujifilm, either body or lens. And so I have affiliate links down below. And as well, you have to remember that KEH does have a 180-day warranty on anything that you do buy used from them. And as well, they have a 21-day return or exchange policy. And so go to the website to get details on that. They have up to 60,000 items in stock, up to 40% below retail on their used product, 100% KEH approved, appraised, graded, renewed, and resold. Now, if you are trading in, you can either phone or schedule video chat for a more accurate quote on your gear. Remember to use the affiliate links down below for all these specials for this month. Thank you so much KEH for working with me, and look forward to hear from you guys down below. So maybe you have an XH1 and you're happy with it, but you want that brand new lens right there, the 30mm, or you want the new 56, or like me, are you trying to decide between the X-T5 or the XH2, or maybe we're gonna wait around for a new X Pro 4. But either way, thank you so much for watching, guys. We'll talk to you soon, and happy shooting.